I got to play a few hours of Assassin's Creed Shadows recently, and I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So my goal here is to help you decide if you'll enjoy it too. This video is not sponsored by Ubisoft, and I wasn't even required to make it. Ubisoft just invited me to a remote preview event along with a bunch of other content creators. But I wanted to make a video because I actually think there's a good chance you'll like AC Shadows, whether you're an existing fan or brand new to Assassin's Creed, and hopefully I can help you figure that out. The first part of the demo was essentially watching the prologue and intro cutscenes of the game to set up the story and introduce us to our dual protagonists, Naue and Yasuke. Then I played through the initial tutorial sections. Obviously, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just speak in more general terms about this part. First off, this was definitely the most narratively impressive intro to an Assassin's Creed game that I've seen. I can't say I've played every single AC game, but I've played Origins, Odyssey, and a bit of Valhalla most recently, and Shadows definitely strikes me as a step up in the storytelling department. I think they've done a good job taking enough time to set up a good story, but also not dragging on the cutscenes too long before you get to jump into the action. I know some people are also concerned about how Yasuke is going to fit into the story, or if it's going to feel forced. Again, I don't want to spoil anything, but no, it didn't feel forced to me. In fact, from what I saw, it seemed like they crafted a narrative for him that actually makes a lot of sense, and it looks like it will work well. He struck me as a compelling character, and I wanted to spend more time with him to learn about his backstory and get to know him. Of course, people don't have nearly as many questions about Naue's character, so I'll just say that she seems pretty cool and she clearly had a compelling story of her own. What I can't comment on is how Naue and Yasuke end up working together. That will definitely be interesting to see. But let's talk about gameplay. Once we were past the prologue and a couple of quick tutorials, the demo jumped forward to the late game and dropped us in the Harima region where I was free to explore the city and surrounding area. I couldn't wander around the entire game map, but I could go pretty much anywhere in the region, which was definitely bigger than I had time to explore in my 2 hours of free roaming anyway. One of the first things I checked out was how easily and often I could switch between Naue and Yasuke, and I was really glad to see that there's a lot of freedom here. When you're exploring, you can switch between them anytime you want, and I was also able to choose who I wanted to play as at the start of quests, and even switch during a quest as long as I wasn't inside a combat zone or actively in the middle of combat. I'm sure there will be a few quests that require Naue or Yasuke for at least part of it for narrative reasons, but I got the impression this would be very minimal. Seems like you'll be mostly free to play as whoever you'd like, whenever you'd like. Although, if you're going for 100% completion, there are side activities specific to each character, like meditation activities for Naue that reveal more of her backstory, and encounters for Yasuke where an NPC can teach him kata, which are new combos for his weapons. I didn't actually get to do one of those, but it sounds like a pretty cool and rewarding thing to find while exploring. But I was also really curious to see if I preferred playing as one character or the other. I split my time evenly between them as best I could, and I definitely gravitated more towards Naue. She's faster, quieter, and has the full suite of stealth mechanics available to her. So she feels much closer to the conventional assassin, and I think most existing fans of the franchise will default to her as well. But both characters do have basic stealth mechanics like hiding in bushes, whistling, and performing various assassinations from different angles. They also both get the new stealth mechanics, like being able to extinguish light sources to create shadows that you can hide in, and going prone to crawl around and reduce your visibility even more than crouching. But Naue gets some additional stealth and parkour mechanics that really make her the clear choice for stealth gameplay. For example, when prone, she can roll in any direction to quickly reposition. Because she's smaller, she can also squeeze through gaps Yasuke can't, and she makes less noise while sprinting and when landing from high jumps. But probably the biggest difference you're going to notice with Naue is her grappling hook, which gives her way more verticality than Yasuke. You can grapple onto pretty much any overhang or ledge, and also swing from big tree branches. It feels a lot like the grappling hook in Ghost of Tsushima, but you're free to use it throughout the open world. Ghost fans will also feel very at home with Naue's set of tools, which include smoke bombs to create cover and instant assassination opportunities, though that will only work on weaker enemies, shinobi bells to lure enemies wherever you'd like, and kunai throwing knives that allow for ranged assassinations when used precisely. She also has shuriken throwing stars, which are better for destroying light sources than dealing damage to enemies. Naue is also the only one who gets eagle vision, which lets her see enemies through walls. But eagle vision shouldn't be confused with the new observe mechanic, which both Naue and Yasuke have. Shadows no longer has an eagle to let you scout from above and mark targets. targets. Instead, you are basically the eagle now. The observe mechanic operates just like the eagle in previous games, letting you observe your surroundings to tag locations, enemies, and objects, but it now just operates from Naoe or Yasuke's point of view. In practice, this means you'll need to climb up to find good vantage points to gather intel. And while both characters can use the observe mechanic, Naoe is going to have a clear advantage with it since she can climb more easily with her grappling hook, especially since not all walls are climbable in AC Shadows. You'll only be able to climb walls that actually have enough ledges and features to grab onto. I was a bit worried about that before the demo, but it turns out a lot of walls are still climbable. The non-climbable ones will be much more noticeable with Yasuke, since Naoe will be able to grapple her way over most of them. But even though Naoe clearly has the advantage with stealth and parkour, that doesn't mean she's terrible at melee. In fact, I was surprised by how deadly she could be with her 3 melee weapons, which consist of a katana for your typical sword fighting, a tanto short blade, which combos with the hidden blade to allow dual assassinations, and my favorite, the kusarigama, which has a small handheld scythe and a long ball and chain she can whip around to hit multiple enemies at once and do cool combos like hooking onto an enemy and grappling to them. I think glass cannon is the best way to describe Naoe in melee combat. If you can master her melee mechanics, she's pretty lethal, but she doesn't have armor, so she can't take a hit nearly as well as Yasuke. Both characters can parry enemy attacks and perform perfect dodges, both of which will put enemies into a vulnerable state, opening them up for increased damage. But Naoe's parry is technically called a deflect, because unlike Yasuke, who will hold his ground when parrying, Naoe sidesteps around the enemy, which in a group could put you in a more vulnerable position. She also can't block at all, whereas Yasuke can block both melee and ranged attacks. But Naoe can use the new posture attacks just like Yasuke. So you've got a light and heavy attack both characters can do with all their melee weapons. But then you can also hold the light or heavy attack buttons to charge them up for 2 different posture attacks, both of which will break an enemy's guard. Combined with parrying and perfect dodges, I really like the improvements to melee combat. Plus, the combat system goes much deeper. Each character has 3 different melee weapons, each with different combos. You'll be able to unlock additional combos with passive skills, and of course there are a bunch of active skills for really cool and powerful attacks. But if you're really into melee combat, Yasuke is definitely your guy. In addition to the extra combos, he can actually switch weapons mid-combo, giving you even more combo options. Also, the last hit of Yasuke's combos will break an enemy's block without needing to charge a posture attack, since he's more powerful than Naoe. He also has more weapon options. He has a katana like Naoe, but then he also has a spear called a naginata that's good against groups, and a kanabo, which is the big bat. It's slow, but deals massive damage. Yasuke also gets 2 ranged weapons. A rifle, which seems like it will be most effective for openers since it's pretty slow to reload but can pierce armor and it has good range. And then he also has a bow, which shoots faster than the rifle and is quieter, giving him a ranged stealth option. Like I mentioned earlier, Yasuke does have the same basic stealth mechanics as Naoe, but he isn't as good at them. I found it pretty difficult to sneak up on enemies. You have to go really slow to keep the noise down, and even then it's tough. But even though I felt more comfortable with Naoe right off the bat, and I really like her mobility, I think it'll be fun to master Yasuke's mechanics as well. Overall, it feels like they did a really good job balancing the 2 characters with unique capabilities, but also retaining the core mechanics needed to make each of them viable in almost any situation. And the combat system more broadly seems to have a good amount of depth. Like, we haven't even talked about the ally system, which will let you call in reinforcement NPCs that you've befriended. I didn't get to play around with the allies much, but it seems like they serve as another balancing mechanic between Naoe and Yasuke's differences. For example, by calling in a tankier ally to help distract a group of enemies from Naoe. Compared to other AC games, I'd say Shadow's combat system feels like a mix of Odyssey and Valhalla, with some good refinements and new mechanics that elevate it beyond either of those games. It seems like they've made improvements to enemy AI as well. For example, enemies definitely know when you're charging a posture attack and will try to take that opportunity to attack you, so you have to be tactical with those. Although for ranged enemies in particular, I did feel like they still just found a good spot to shoot me from until I took them out. That's how it is in a lot of games though, so it's a minor critique. But I know a lot of people are curious what exploration is like. As I mentioned earlier, I was restricted to just one part of one region for the demo, but first off, it looks really good visually. The part of the map I saw was well crafted, and it was also pretty dense with something going on pretty much anywhere I went. I found multiple side quests quickly, as well as temples I could honor for rewards. There's also safe houses out in the world, which act as fast travel points in addition to the conventional sync points, but the safe houses also let you access your gear stash, refill rations, ammo, and tools, switch up which allies are accessible in combat, and replenish your scouts. Scouts are part of Ubisoft's effort to make the exploration and questing system a bit less hand-holdy. Basically, instead of just getting a marker on screen to guide you exactly where you need to go, you'll get a set of clues that describe where the location or target is. To narrow down the search area, you can deploy a scout on the map. If you're concerned about the reduced exploration guidance, I really wouldn't worry about it. From what I saw, the clues are pretty obvious and the scouts make it easier. There's also still the Pathfinder ability, which creates a path taking you directly to your map marker. And if you really want it to function like previous games, there's going to be a toggle for a guided option in the accessibility settings. I personally like the reduced guidance though, and I wish I had had more time to explore. I'm definitely looking forward to that once the game is out. I think there's a solid chance Shadows will objectively be considered the best Assassin's Creed yet, which frankly it should be and kind of has to be given where Ubisoft is right now. But I also think if you're an Assassin's Creed fan, that Shadows could become your favorite AC game, or at least one of your favorites. I'm not saying it's definitely a phenomenal game. The jury is still out on that until we can play a lot more of it, but it seems like it's shaping up to be pretty good and maybe great. For me, I think I'm convinced the gameplay's solid, so I think how good the narrative is will determine that difference. I'm definitely spoiled by top-tier narrative games like Ghost of Tsushima, which Shadows will definitely be compared to. I think Shadows will outdo Ghost in the gameplay variety it offers and also the sheer size of the game and things to do. But I think Ghost will probably still be superior in the storytelling and character development department. That's not to say Shadows will have a bad story or uninteresting characters. I actually think it's looking quite promising, but the bar set by Ghost and some other narrative-driven games is pretty high. If Shadows can match that, I'll be blown away, but even if it ends up a notch below, I'm pretty sure I'll still enjoy it, and I'm definitely looking forward to the gameplay. I don't think Shadows is breaking the Ubisoft open world mold completely, but there's enough new stuff here that I'm definitely interested and I want to play more. I'll definitely be making more videos for Shadows, and the next one will be right here when it's ready, which will probably be my full review. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you there.